Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Spin Sheet Happy Hour. Hi, Molly. How are you?
No, I'm so used to saying happy Friday, but happy
Happy
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, we decided to reschedule this one, not because we're off on Good Friday, but we heard that a lot of people are, and we thought attendance might not be that good. So we just thought we'd bump it up a little bit and do it on a Wednesday. So why not?
I think it's a great idea.
It's a beautiful spring day. I see that you've quite upgraded your living room.
I have. I got a new office.
Yeah.
No, I am streaming from home again, but it is unusually dirty right now. So
All right. Well, you're forgiven.
thank you.
Maybe we should let's talk about Mount Gay.
Let's talk about Mount Gay. First thing, of course, let's thank Mount Gay.
Thank you, Mount Gay.
Yes, thank you, Mount Gay. Mount Gay sponsors the Spin Sheet Happy Hour and the racing section of Spin Sheet. So without them, we can't do this. So very big thanks to them. We do have a signature cocktail that I think we're going to start out with, if that's okay.
Yeah, it is new and exciting, and you'll find out when you see the video.
Yes.
I'm Lauren Trickett, brand ambassador with Mount Gay Rum. The iconic Mount Gay Red Cap is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. To join in on that celebration, today we're going to make the Red Cap cocktail, starting with 2 ounces of Mount Gay Rum Eclipse, right over ice into our cup. Now we need some pineapple juice, a little float of grenadine. You could, of course, make your own grenadine if that's the kind of thing that you enjoy to do, or you could just spend more time outside on your boat. It is the Red Cap cocktail, so now we need a garnish. And there you have it, the Mount Gay Red Cap cocktail. Cheers.
Cheers.
She did a great job.
Yeah, that is my kind of cocktail. It's fast to make. I do like the bit about spending more time on your boat.
Of course.
Who has time for making your own grenadine during sailing season?
Exactly. Do you want to do a quick Red Hat photo in celebration of the 40th anniversary?
Let's go ahead and we'll do that early. I know one of our guests is sort of stuck in traffic, so we're going to kill some time. So Mount Gay has been supporting the sailing community for 40 years. So in celebration of that, their red hats this year are going to have this logo on the side that says 40 years under the hat.
That's cool.
And our red hat photo of the month? That is from what was formerly known as the Nude Regatta. It is now the Helly Hansen Sailing World Regatta Series, and it will be here before you know it. It is on May 5th. It starts here in Annapolis. So that's a nice picture. I believe, and somebody can correct me, I believe that is Spin Sheet Century Club member and Spin Sheet Racing Team member Casey Firth in the red hat. So,
cool.
Hi, Casey.
Well,
Cool
I know how difficult doing a rebrand is, but I will have to say, I don't think they're ever going to get rid of nudes. I think everybody's always going to consider the nudes. Anyway, my opinion.
Honestly, though, I am surprised to hear how many people are calling it the Heli Regatta. Or the Sailing World Regatta, and they'll say something like, the Heli Sailing World Regatta, whatever they're calling it now. So I've been surprised how many people have jumped on the bandwagon of the rebrand. So it might not take as long as we think.
That's true.
Of course, there'll always be stubborn people who want to call it the nude, but okay. It was cute back when there were, offshore one designs. So,
well, before we bring on our guests, I do want to say that tonight's topic is really perfect. Obviously, we're going to talk about how to buy a boat, but the spring sailboat show is just around the corner.
Yeah. Well, first we had the Bay Bridge Boat Show for anyone who's looking for a power boat. That's April 14th. And then 2 weeks later, we have the Annapolis Spring Sailboat Show. It starts on April 28th. And of course, those who are experienced spin cheaters know that we have our Annapolis crew party on Sunday of that weekend, which is April 30th from 4 to 6 at the Eastport Yacht Club. So hope you guys will all make it to that one. If not one of our other crew parties, when are the other crew parties?
So actually, we do 2 others. Hampton and Solomon's are back to back the weekend before. So that's the 22nd and 23rd.
Yeah. And
Hampton,
I know the one at Solomon's is from 4 to 6, but in Hampton, they're kind of on their own program down there.
Hampton's
them on
4
to 6.
No, Hampton's 4 to question mark. They don't put a time limit on there.
Yeah, they're kind of more on the 5 to 8 program. But
exactly.
Hey, we love people in Hampton. They are sailing crazy. So anyway, we look forward to seeing everybody at our crew parties. And today we're going to just talk about boat buying tips. And we have an interesting variety of guests tonight. So we have 2 yacht brokers. We have Tim Wilbricht from Pocket Yacht. So we're going to let Tim tell you about his background. So he is in the world of power boats now, but he hasn't always been. And then we have Erin, I hope I'm getting her last name correct. I think it's Townley from Crusader Yacht Sales.
Is it? Good job.
And Wes Williams from the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. So he is he's sort of on a different end of it. And I hope that he can give us some tips about more on the pre-owned vessel front.
Right.
But anyway, we're going to find out. So why don't we just bring them on and welcome them to the program, see what they're drinking.
All right, there we go.
Hi, Erin. Hi, Wes. Hi, Tim. Welcome to the Spin Sheet Happy Hour.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I know that Tim is in traffic, so he might not quite fully be with us for a while, but that's okay. We'll catch up with him as soon as he gets to his destination. But anyway, welcome to the Spin Sheet Happy Hour. We're really glad that you guys can join us. I am drinking bubbly water tonight, but I can certainly cheers with bubbly water. What are you having over there, Sharb?
I'm having a beer.
Anyone else? Anyone else have a coffee now?
Fizzy lemonade.
All right.
Nice.
How about you, Wes?
Ice cold still water.
All right. Well, cheers, everybody, and welcome to the Spin Sheet Happy Hour.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
So, Sharb, are you going to go into the green room?
As always, I'll see you guys at the end.
All right. Well, thanks. All right. So we always like to start at the beginning, Spin Sheet Happy Hour. And I'm going to start with you, Erin. We're just going to go in clockwise order. If you would tell us sort of how you came into boating, and you can start with when you were a little kid, but maybe give us the abbreviated how you got into boating and then how you ended up selling boats.
The Spark Notes version of it. I started boating aboard my grandparents' Glastron on the Potomac River since I could walk, and then graduated eventually to sailing out of getaway sailing in Baltimore until we got kicked out of the club for using the boats too much.
Yeah.
And then as a family of 4, I was 8. We moved aboard our sailboat and lived down in downtown Annapolis for 8 years. And I've been cruising, and then eventually went off to college, studied marketing. And my dad, who's been a yacht broker for about 30 years, Dave, scooped me up straight away just to do the marketing for 6 months. And now it's been 13 years.
So that little part-time marketing gig worked out well.
Exactly. So I was originally with Integrity Yacht Sales, which is down in Deal. And then about 6.5 years ago, I joined Crusader Yacht Sales, which is also Seattle Yachts. And I've been with them ever since.
Okay, good. Well, it's been a while then, so welcome.
Thank you.
How about you, Wes? I don't know anything about your background, but I figure it must involve boats if you're and you can tell us what you do there at Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum.
Okay. Initially, I got my first boat when I was 12 years old, and that was after probably 3 years of pestering my dad to let me get one. It was a little power boat. When I was 16, I got my first sailboat, which was an AMF Force 5, which is still a favorite boat I've ever sailed. Always have had boats. Bought and sold them with my son for a while, just kind of for fun on the side. I had a fairly long career in healthcare, and about 10 years ago, I went temporarily insane and bought a marina, and had the marina for 8 or 9 years, and it was down on the Gulf Coast of Texas, and we did a lot of boat stuff down there for sure. And at one point, it's embarrassing to say, but I owned 13 boats while I had the marina. But anyway, so it's a good thing I sold. When I sold the marina, kind of had a lot of options of where I wanted to go, and I decided on the Eastern Shore. I've got some family who lives over here, And around about the same time I moved here, they had an opening at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum for boat donations director. It was kind of in the middle of COVID, and stuff had just really slowed down, and I was willing to do it, and it's been a blast. And basically what we do is we solicit people to donate boats to the museum, and then we turn around and we sell them. And it's, a pretty significant portion of the funds that are raised for the museum. So, I get to, every day I get to look at boats, ride on boats, get on boats, talk about boats all day long. And it's fantastic.
Oh, that's great. I love going to the charity boat auction at the Maritime Museum, and I've never bought anything there, but man, it's fun. It's fun to watch people bid on stuff and just watch them steal sailboats.
You got to move fast. You got to move fast at that auction, because we usually sell 65 to 70, and last year we sold 65 boats in just under 2 hours. So,
oh my gosh,
it's a fast moving auction. You need to come early and look and see what you want.
Yeah, well, it's really a phenomenon. It's a lot of fun. I always tell people, even if you're not for a market of a boat, you need to go check it out. You need to go at least once to that to see what it's all about.
It is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Tim, are you anywhere where we can hear you, or should we keep moving and then come back to you, or?
Yeah, well, I made the poor decision to leave a little too late from the office. I'm almost home. I'm like maybe 2 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I'll get some better Wi-Fi signal. But why don't you just get me for now, and I'll come back.
That sounds great. No problem. This can be a very circular conversation. The whole idea is it's Spin Sheet Happy Hour. It's like being under the regatta tent. We can just put you on hold and come back to learning more about your boating history. So let's talk about goals. I bet you can speak to this, Erin, because I know that in all the years that I have interviewed people about.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow.
Usually at Sharp, maybe we can mute Tim just for now. And all the years that I've interviewed people about this, goals are usually the first thing to come out of their mouth. So talk to me about goals.
So I feel like when you're doing boat shopping, you're kind of, we have that phase where every boater and buyer is trying to figure out what their goals are for where they're going to cruise, how they're going to use their boat. It's kind of like a dating profile, like eHarmony. You got to figure out, are you spending time with family, friends, on your own? Where do you think you're going to go? You have to figure out all the answers to these questions, sometimes with a guide, and kind of figure out how you really think you're going to use the boat. Because I'd say I think the average boat ownership is only about 3 years before people either move up in size or move out of it. So it's a surprisingly short period, because we oftentimes don't get it right the first time.
Yeah. So, and do people sometimes, when you ask them how they're going to use their boat, do they sometimes look at you blankly on that?
Yeah, some people have no idea. I mean, I've seen probably over the last 6 or 7 years, a larger and larger majority of people are coming to us with no boating experience at all, because they've watched YouTube and they've watched these cruisers on the internet, and there's so much information out there that we've got a ton of first-time buyers, which means they really don't know the ins and outs of cruising and kind of where they're going to actually fit into the spectrum of being a live-aboard versus the weekend warrior.
Yeah. So, Tim.
Yes.
I hear you. I finally hear you.
Sorry, I got caught on bridge traffic. I left too late from the office. I apologize.
Hey, no problem.
Quick background on my background.
Yes, would love to hear your boating background and how you came to selling boats. And I know it's pretty interesting. I know a bit about your background. I know more about your background than the others.
Well, so my background is I grew up in Virginia Beach, and my wife grew up there as well. I boated all the time on the Chesapeake Bay at the southern part of it with my dad on small little fishing boats. He was a big-time fisherman in that. It was his passion, so he was out there almost every day fishing. And so I joined him when I could. And so I kind of grew up with the boating kind of in my brain. And then...
Suspense!
Tim is leaving us with all kinds of suspense tonight. So Wes, let's get back to goals.
Okay.
Do you talk to people about goals too in your part of the world?
I do. It's interesting when people come to me, they're kind of break them into, a couple of categories. One, they got no idea. They're brand new to boating, and they feel like they might get a pretty good deal on a boat from us. And so I'll have people who come and I say, I'd like to see these 5 boats, and it's 5 completely different, a cruiser, a day sailor, water ski boat, dinghy, and whatever. So I try to narrow people down, and it's sometimes they come before they've even really thought it through. And then I've got others who, probably most of our boaters are not first-time boaters, and they're pretty specific on what they want, but they often are moving from one class of boat to another. So we do talk about what is it that they want to do. One of the first things I talk to them about, if they're kind of drooling over a boat that's in the water, is where are you going to keep this thing? Because you'll notice it's not on a trailer, and even if it was, it wouldn't fit in your driveway. So kind of at least separate them from do you want a boat that you can move around to different parts of the water by car and just run them for a day, or do you want something that's going to be locked into a marina for a season, and that you're going to be doing sailing out of that marina, to kind of at least figure out, sort of the scope of what they want to do. That's kind of where I try to begin with people.
Yeah, that's great. That's quite similar. And I see, hi, Captain Boomies. I'm glad you're here. If anyone has questions, feel free to put them into the comments there on Facebook or on YouTube, and we will get to them. We might already be, we might be getting to that in a little while. So hold that thought. We are going to get back to you. And Tim was somewhere in his youth in Virginia Beach. Last we heard from him, and he's gone again. Okay, so better to buy a boat on your own or bring in an expert to help?
I would definitely say, if you have someone in your pocket who's seen hundreds of boats, and from your perspective, we're free to you, why not get some help?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about that, Tim? Hire an expert or do it on your own? Oh, darn, I'm not hearing you. No, I cannot hear you now. If you call Sharb, he might be able to put you on speaker. Ooh.
Just get a little, we can sign it.
Okay. Tim, give me a shout. I'm going to put you off here. Okay, now I'm leaving.
I would say, if you don't mind me jumping in right here, I think it's always good to get as much knowledge as you can, and especially if you're a new boater and you've got a buddy or a family member who's a seasoned boater, it's great to come along, because they can often just kind of think of things, not necessarily to look at the systems of the boat, but to kind of help you figure out what you want to do, But I would say, don't mistake your buddy who knows a little bit about boats for an expert.
Everybody has an opinion in the world of sailing, right?
Yeah, and if
call them
you,
spending consultants.
right.
Call them what kind of consultants?
Spending consultants.
I love that.
Yeah. So because they can sometimes do a little damage by pointing out stuff that is really not, might not be what your issue is, and also they're especially because we deal in used boats all the time. None of our boats are perfect because they're not, we even buy them out of a showroom, and there are always little things that someone's not going to like, but I wouldn't let that stand in your way of something that that you're feeling good about, and that is going to be a pretty decent decision on your part. Don't let someone talk you out of it for some goofy reason.
Well, I know
Oh, go ahead.
Sometimes when people ask me that, they'll say, oh, well, of course you're going to say that they need to have a yacht broker or someone with them because they all advertise in Spin Sheet. And I said, yeah, but you know what? They're in the market all day, every day. So they're going to see more and know more than you do, right?
Right. I mean, for most yacht brokers, we're selling lots of boats each year. We're on all of those survey and sea trial days, so we're getting to experience this wide variety of boats. You know, we do deliveries for our clients, so we're inland, offshore, so we get a feel for handling. So it's more just a knowledge base of experience the more you go along with it. And
Yeah.
that can be really useful.
Okay, we're gonna see what Tim has to say on that. So we're gonna jump around a little bit, but let's talk about Erin. Before you said something about people only staying in their first boat for 2 or 3 years because they don't always get it right. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see buyers make?
A lot of times, what we see are people who have really amazing cruising goals. But the reality is that, you know, we're going to sail from Solomon's down up to Rock Hall. It's going to be a local cruising boat. And they buy a lot of boat for it. Because oftentimes we think, oh, we're going to go do this huge transatlantic journey. When really, most often, most of us as cruisers are popping down to the islands, inlet after inlet down the coast, and then
Right.
enjoying our sandy beaches. So I'd say lots of times, it's very un-yacht broker of me, but it's spending too much money on too much boat.
Yeah. Well, and also maybe they sail from Rock Hall down to Solomon's on a windy day and realize, well, that can be an adventure.
Well, it can be a tricky one.
Chesapeake. We really want to go on the ocean? Oh my gosh. Tim, do we have you sorted over there? Except I can't hear him. Darn it. Did you call Chris Charbonneau's cell phone?
Yeah. Tim, go into the private comments and you
go into the private chat. Chris Charbonneau's cell phone is there, and we can get you on. We can get your sound working. We promise. We'll get to you eventually. All right, where were we? Common buyer mistakes. So they think they're going to sail around the world, and maybe they haven't sailed from Rock Hall to
Exactly. I mean, there are people who are going to cruise extensively and do a lot of long-range cruising and need things like a water maker. That's the perfect example of some gear that probably most people don't actually need.
Right.
You can't use it on the bay because our water is brackish and you need fully salt water, and those types of systems can kind of die when they sit for too long. So if you've got a boat that's never left the bay, we call it SBS, sleeping boat syndrome.
As a paddleboarder on the Chesapeake, I can tell you there are a lot of big, beautiful boats that are asleep on the Chesapeake.
Exactly.
Yeah. How about you, Wes? Do you see buyer mistakes in your part of the world, or on the used market, or?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people make mistakes, but I guess it's better if they make them with us because they're not making as expensive mistakes as they might be, if they're going to a broker or to, a new boat dealer or something like that. But I think one of the biggest is, wanting way too much boat for, their level of boating experience. We get a lot of first-time sailors who come in who really, they've sailed a dinghy, but they haven't sold a boat, and we really try to, steer them towards something that is smaller than bigger. They'd be much better on a Catalina 22 or 25 than they would on, some 30 or 35 foot boat for their first one, because they can single-hand it if they want to, and kind of get the feel for sort of what that mid-level size boat is. And then, just kind of not having thought completely through the process. And I mean, we're a good venue for that. Just kind of coming and looking and kicking the tires on a lot of boats. It's kind of like going to CarMax. You don't really know what kind of car you want, so you can look at a whole bunch of different kinds of cars. And it's like us. You don't really know what kind of boat, but they can look at 70 or 75 boats, all pretty much different if they want. So, but I think it's just sort of mismatched expectations for what they think they want to do and what kind of boat seems to be attractive to them.
Yeah, I think you're in part answering Captain Boomy's question, which was boat shopping is fun, but hard. How do you pick? And I think that coming up with your goals and what you just said, Wes, kind of addresses that pretty well. Do you have anything else to add to that question? Boat shopping is fun but hard. How do you pick?
Well, you can be like me and wind up with 13 boats because I can't pick.
Just buy all of them.
Yeah, it is hard, and especially if you're I don't know. If you're new to the boat buying market and you really don't know what you want, it is hard to decide because there are a lot of different things that you can weigh. Right now, nobody wants to be paying $4 a gallon for gas, and so sailing is a really big option. But if you don't really know how to sail, or if you want to go do part-time fishing up in creeks as well, a sailboat's not going to be your best option, and it is hard to decide because I don't really know that there's any one boat that's something for every one boat.
Mm-hmm.
So can you hear me, Molly?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Well, of course, only one thing's going to work now. I apologize.
I see that Laura Mahoney is in our audience, and she said, "I'm rooting for you, Tim."
Well, I'm back. I'm just not all the way back.
We last left you back down at Virginia Beach, and
okay. So from Virginia Beach,
boating as a kid.
I went to college and then moved way inland to Cincinnati, and my girlfriend became my wife, and she said, "We can't live here. We need to live closer to the water." And she said, "If you could do anything, what would you do?" I said, "I'd buy a sailboat, sail away." Neither of us were real sailors, but we were boaters. So we ended up buying a cruising sailboat and spent years down in the Caribbean. And then when I got back, started a couple of companies, but just missed that whole sailing vibe. So I ended up moving to Annapolis from Boston when my wife became pregnant with our first son. And I became a yacht broker, and I've been a yacht broker for 25 years. And, I initially started where I bought my boat. I bought my boat from Annapolis Yacht Sales. I worked there as a broker for 15 years. I ended up buying the company 15 years in, and ran it for 5 years. And then decided to take some time off, and then got back into it a couple of years later. And I've been working at Pocket Yacht Company now for 3 years.
Yeah. So Pocket Yacht, those are like the boats you go to when you are done sailing, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Most people that get into our boats either are kind of getting into them on their way up because they're a smaller boat that's easily handled because they have things like bow thrusters and stern thrusters and things like that. They have all the equipment that a bigger boat's going to have, but they're in a small package. So people that are getting into boating feel good about them. And then people that move up to bigger boats, 40, 50 footers and bigger sailboats, when they come back down that other side, they've gotten used to the electric toilets and the push button this and all the accoutrements that a bigger boat has, and it fits right into that vein. And it really strikes a chord with sailors because it has a kind of charming look to it. You can go slow if you want to, but the boats are actually pretty quick. So yeah, it's definitely a sailor's last boat for sure.
Yeah, or maybe other boat, right? I will say that at the Powerboat Show that I don't board many boats at the Powerboat Show, but I do spend some time over at Pocket Yacht just because they're kind of adorable. I really like the smallest ones. I have a little fantasy about living on one.
Yeah, well, I said the Ranger tugs definitely have that kind of excitement about them. They're cute little boats, and we also saw a few other boats, Cutwaters, that are a little more down easty looking, and now the new Solera brand, which is kind of more of a feature-rich family sport boat. So yeah, the whole range of boats now.
So Tim, just to catch you up, could you maybe talk to us a little about what you see as some of the most common buyer mistakes when people are buying boats?
Sure. I think the biggest mistake is that people come into it with a set of expectations about what they're going to use their boat for, and they buy the boat based on that expectation, and then they end up using the boat completely differently, and it doesn't meet their needs. They get frustrated. And especially new boat buyers, because I think new boat buyers definitely don't really understand the whole process and how to buy a boat that meets their needs. They just have a budget and they have a size or a picture in their mind. When I went looking for my sailboat, I was after a 40-foot aft cockpit, sloop, and I ended up buying a 38-foot center cockpit Ketch
So almost the complete opposite of the spectrum. But as I learned more about what cruising was going to be like and living aboard a smaller boat, I realized that the center cockpit made more sense for me. And I think that's what happens with buyers is they kind of rush into things sometimes with that set of expectations, and then the boat doesn't meet their expectations. And unfortunately, we lose some of those people to boating because they get frustrated, or they buy a boat that just, like I said, too old and beat up, and they have to spend half their time fixing a boat. I always think that it makes so much sense to work with somebody that can really kind of take what you're telling them and guide you into where they think you're really going to end up. And that's why working with a professional yacht broker makes so much sense, because they've been through this process so many times. They can help you not make those kind of mistakes.
So when it comes to sort of stereotypes of things that fly out of people's mouths, I've heard, buy the biggest boat you can afford. And I've also heard, buy a boat you can sail single-handedly. If you had sort of like a phrase you could give to people.
Buy biggest is always part of my spiel. I say buy the biggest, newest, cleanest boat your budget can afford. And I always say biggest because most people, they want to baby step through the process. They'll buy a 28-footer and then a 30-footer and then a 35-footer and then a 40-footer. And at the end of the day, they could have started out with a 40-footer and just had somebody really teach them how to use that boat from the beginning, and they would have owned that boat for 10 years rather than hopping through a whole series of boats. So biggest is important, because I think people sometimes they're fearful and they do buy too small, and right away they get 6-foot-itis and they want that next bigger boat. But newest is important because the newer boat's going to have fewer issues. Cleanest is important because you want a boat that's been cared for. So I think that if you kind of meld those things together, they kind of point you in the right direction.
So Wes, you obviously aren't telling people to buy the newest, cleanest boat they can find just by the nature of what kind of boat you're selling. So
Right.
do you have any sort of piece of advice that you give to people on what they're buying, or am I just being repetitive and it's more about their goals?
For us, it's more about their goals. I think most of the people who are buying from us, we have a lot of repeat buyers. So it's not their first boat. And, my advice is kind of, look for a newer boat, obviously, and I have to kind of bite my tongue when I say that, because we have a lot of boats that aren't new, but they've been really well kept up. And so, that's my other part of the advice is really, look at the condition of the boat for what it is versus, just something that's cheaper or bigger. Look at the condition of the boat, and we can tell. I can almost tell on the phone when someone calls to donate a boat, what condition the boat's going to be just by talking to them on the phone. And you can come and look, and you can tell a lot about a boat and how it's being cared for just by walking around and looking at it, looking at the engine room. Does stuff work or not? So it's a little different for us. If someone buys a new yacht, or new boat, they're going to expect everything to work, and they're going to be able to bring it back, to make sure that it's working right, when they finally take full delivery of it. But, ours it's kind of, we're a whole different ball game, but, we try to steer, if someone doesn't care, then, if, they're a mechanic, they feel comfortable, then they're just looking for the most they can get, no matter what condition it's in. But if it's a newer buyer, someone who doesn't know a whole lot about boats, I really want them to focus on, the looks of the boat. And I try to give them as much background information as I have on the boats.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Erin? Do you have anything to add on what we're discussing here?
I think it's pretty nuanced because I'd say, ideally you want to buy a boat where it's either brand new or as new as possible, but you don't want to be someone who is boat poor and regretting your decisions because you broke your initial budget, you've gone beyond, you've got carrying costs, storage, insurance, getting out to the boat and taking a week off work to go for your summer cruise. So there's this balance of spending as much as you can to get the nicest boat possible, but also kind of saving yourself there, pull back a little bit so that you've got a budget to kind of make a boat yours once you purchase it. I feel like a lot of times we try to go full Monty and get the boat that has everything, when oftentimes maybe we stay with the boat for a little while, figure out what you really need, and then outfit it based on that. It's kind of like the boat has good bones, but you want to give it good lipstick as you go along, but you don't want your head down in the engine room all summer when you could be out sailing with your family. So that's where that survey and a yacht broker who can kind of point engine room deficiencies and that kind of stuff out early can help you kind of get your way along, figure out how to best use your budget.
So we have a number of audience questions, but before we get to those, I want to touch on two different things that I know are important in the boat buying process. And Erin, you just touched upon it, so I'm going to let you go first. What are the other expenses that you should be keeping in mind besides just buying a boat? I know Wes talked about it earlier when he said to say to them, where are you going to keep this thing? So there are some other regular expenses involved in boat ownership. And maybe you can be the first to address this question and the others can add their perspective.
Well, BOAT, bring on another 1,000. There are other expenses that come with boat ownership. Especially in our area, it's where you're going to put it. That's our first concern, is getting a marina contract or a split contract at a house. You know, are you going to keep it behind your own house? Are you going to keep it on the hook and dinghy out to it? You know, there's a lot of variables there. And then there's also the expense of, like I said, making it yours. Most boats, either new or used, are going to come with most of the gear that you want, but absolutely no boat is ever perfect. So you're going to spend a little bit of money to make it yours.
Yeah.
And that can be 20,000 or it can be 2,000. There's no knowing until you kind of expense report it and make a spreadsheet analysis and get pretty technical with it to figure out where your bottom dollar goes. And then there's insurance, annual maintenance to keep things going. So unfortunately, that first check is not the last, but it's usually not too bad if you're looking at something that's in good shape and been cared for by the previous owner.
Mm-hmm. And anything you have to add to that, Tim?
I would just say the only other costs that you need to think about are the ongoing costs, like fuel costs for a powerboat. But she's covered them all in terms of what you need to think about in terms of budgeting for a boat.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And how about budgeting for the used boats, the type that you sell? I'm sorry, they call them pre-owned vessels these days, I think. Wes?
They're used. Some of them are well used. But one of the things that has been a little challenging for some of our potential buyers has been insurance. Insurance these days on some boats, especially older boats, is getting harder and harder. We've had several people who have fallen in love with. We had a really nice 43 Kelly Peterson offshore cruising, and it was a beautiful boat in great shape. The owners had been worldwide cruisers living on this boat for over 20 years. They brought it in. It's in immaculate condition. It was, I think it was 1972. They couldn't, had 3 buyers back out because they couldn't get insurance on it. The best they could do was, one of them was able to get insurance coverage down to the Bahamas, but nowhere further than that. And, you got an offshore cruiser, you want to go further than the Bahamas, most likely. So, it's, I would, try to, if you're looking at a boat that you're going to want to insure and it's a fairly sizable boat, be sure to make contact with insurance companies. Sometimes brokers have some resources, it just all depends. But that's and it can be expensive too, and I'm talking about, beyond just, insurance coverage in case your boat sinks in the marina. I'm talking about, full coverage for traveling. So that's a big one. And then also, an expense, that a lot of people have, if they're buying, used boats, they feel like, once they get a sailboat, it's the done deal. That's, it sails. Yeah, I don't have to buy gas, but you got to maintain your sails, and sometimes you got to replace sails. And replacing a sail sometimes is as much as replacing an engine in a cruising vessel. So, sails, condition of the sails, and lines, rigging, all that stuff is important if you're getting in on the cheaps.
Yeah, let's talk about marine surveys, the value of a marine survey. Erin, I'm going to ask you first. What is the value of a marine survey, and how do you find a good surveyor?
one, it ties into that insurance topic. Insurance has gotten a lot tougher over the last couple of years with so many new boaters. So a lot of insurers are actually requiring a marine survey before they'll write a policy. So that's our first big hurdle. And then as far as the actual survey goes, it's nice to have someone go through the whole entire boat, every detail, even if it's new, and come up with like kind of a category of items that either need immediate repair for the safety of the vessel, kind of a gray area where something could go wrong in the future, like say cracked hoses and an engine exhaust, or things that are, kind of maintenance wear and tear stuff like crazing cracks. It creates a honey-do list for you down the road where maybe it's not something that's going to be immediate, but it's nice to know about beforehand. So, and that also helps you figure out the actual value of the yacht. You don't want to buy a power boat where the engines aren't going to engine. And a surveyor is going to help you figure out all the details of that, more so than just a general consensus of a yacht broker and someone who's shopping, taking a look at things for a couple of hours. They're really going to stick their heads into stuff and get down to the nitty-gritty of it, which is great.
Mm-hmm. So, Tim, where do we find a good surveyor? Do you have anything to add to the value of a good surveyor?
When you're working with a broker, they'll have a list that they can give you, but you can also look right on the SAMS or NAMS websites and pull off surveyors that have the accreditations that you're going to want to have. And again, not every surveyor on there is necessarily going to fit your personality. So I always tell people, interview the surveyor a little bit, ask them some questions, see if you can feel like there's some good communication going on, because I think that's really important. I have a funny story about a guy that miscommunicated with a survey, rejected 2 boats, ended up doubling his budget and buying this ocean-going boat. And he asked the same question, would you take this boat across the ocean to the surveyor? And the surveyor said no. And the guy's like, wait a minute. This is the 3rd survey, and this boat is a world traveler boat. And the surveyor goes, I don't like to sail in the ocean. Asking the right question. He rejected 2 boats based on that question. Would you sail this boat in the ocean? No. That's all he asked. So I think it's important to have really, really good communication with a surveyor. I think that there are certain surveyors and brokers tend to like them, which are good communicators. I think the guys that, are very stoic but very methodical have their value in certain boats. But for the most part, I think most people getting into boating that haven't done surveys before, a good communicator is paramount.
Yeah, and for anyone who's not familiar with NAMS and SAMS, if you put NAMS Marine Survey into Google, the association website will pop up. So that's the National Association of Marine Surveyors, and SAMS is the
Society of Accredited Marine Surveyors. Yeah. So
anyway,
maps, you can skew right in down by maps that'll show you how far away the surveyor has to drive to come to you. And you can usually in most major markets find 5 or 6 right on those websites.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything else to add about marine surveyors, Wes?
No, I don't. I mean, we provide just a list. I think that it is it's good kind of along the same communication to kind of be on the same wavelength with the surveyor, and find someone who you're comfortable talking with. I like surveyors who, they see something, they call the owner down, they say, here, this is the thing I've seen, it might, blah, blah, blah. They just start explaining it, and that they're comfortable rather than just, kind of going off on their own and, coming out with a laundry list. Also it's a, consideration if they're comfortable or familiar with doing like, old wooden boats versus, fiberglass boats. And they will probably self-select out if they don't like, surveying an old wooden boat, they'll just turn you down.
Yeah, that's
but I think, especially if you're looking at a high-end boat, and especially a used boat, that it's pretty important to have a survey, and it's, it might cost you $1,000, but that's $1,000 well spent if you're looking at a used boat for sure.
Okay, so there's a question here by Mary Jude Samansky, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hi, Mary Jude. Thanks for joining us. Should a naval architect be consulted? Would anyone like to answer that question?
To me, I would just say it depends upon the size of the boat and if there are any structural issues that are involved, or if you want to make some sort of change to the boat. Like some people, I want to add a mast here, I want to move the mast back, or I want to, change it from a sloop to a ketch, or I want to, extend the boat by 20 feet. Those are kind of naval architecture type of situations. But for the most part, very, very rare in boat buying, at least, the boats that I sell up to, 50, 60 feet I've ever involved a naval architect.
Right. I think a surveyor is going to cover all those items, like you said, unless you're trying to do some kind of major refit of a boat.
Pretty much all surveyors are going to be looking at bulkheads and stringers to check for structural integrity. So I think that kind of comes in, like where Tim said, with if they want to make huge structural changes, like adding a sugar scoop to the stern or adding more length to the boat, yes. But most of the time, no.
Okay. There's a comment by Dave Skolnick about water makers that let's give Erin a chance to address that. Erin is wrong. Water makers work fine in brackish water. However,
they do have a hard time the fresher the water gets, but I'll trust you, Dave.
Okay. Great. However, lots of people buy water makers they don't need. Okay, what else do we have to say here? First of all, Jane Durden, we just want to say hi to Jane because Jane is calling us from the Atlantic on a delivery and she is Starlink. So hi, Jane. Thanks for joining us. And Betty Caffo has a question. If one spouse wants to race and the other basically wants a mobile beach house, how would you advise them? That's a great question. I love that question.
Buy 2 boats.
I like Wes's answer. Just buy more boats. Yeah.
Pick a boat that has some good speed under it and is still light, but offers a lot of that comfort and outdoor cockpit space and a nice main salon space that you could still either run cans with or do your coastal racing with. Depends on the racing you want to do, I guess. I mean, we had a couple that, 2 couples up in Ohio, both own Tartan 3700s. That the misses like to race for can racing on Saturdays, but the guys like to cruise on during the week. So it's possible to do it with any boat. You just have to find something that will work for both of you based on that kind of dating profile list of what type of boat each of you is looking for.
Tim, is that what you would say too? Do you have a different answer?
I would say absolutely, yeah. There are certain types of boats that can balance that fairly well, but if you want to be in a highly competitive kind of race, then I would opt for the idea of buying 2 boats because there are very, very, very few cruisable condo-ish type boats that are going to go out there and win races. So you either need to set your expectations of not necessarily racing in the super fast races, but on the cruising class races, there's plenty of boats that can balance that very well.
And there are a lot of options on the Chesapeake anyway for racing your cruiser, especially point-to-point races. Absolutely all of them, including what was formerly called the Nude Regatta. That's now the Helly Hansen Sailing World Regatta. They even have a cruising class, which is part of the reason for the name change. So yeah, that's a possibility. So let's first of all, can you just pop up Dave Skolnick's comment about being a naval architect? Yeah, he said, I'd say in general, asking a naval arc is overkill. Surveyor, engine survey, ringing survey, and electronic survey. So thanks, Dave. I'd actually forgotten that you were a naval arc. So thank you. And Betty Caffo also said, good answer. Our solution was a Daler with a lovely interior.
Nice cross.
Of course, I have ambulances going by. But let me ask you this, because we're getting close to the end of our time. It's almost last call. But let me ask you about boat shows. Would you recommend prospective buyers go to boat shows? Or what if they only want a modest boat and the only boats at the boat show are going to be big, giant, brand new boats? Or what are your thoughts on boat shows? I'll let you go first, Tim.
My thought is it's a great place to try on different shapes and sizes and things like that. I don't propose that you go shopping for used boats at new boat shows, but certainly you can start to say, is this size right? And I like that feature. I want to have it on my boat. So it's a great place to go and try on, different boats and see what feels right. And then, find a broker who's willing to spend the time with you to replicate what you think you want in a boat. And I think with the right broker, you'll find somebody that'll help you find what you're looking for. But it's a great place to dream. It's a great place to get ideas. It's a great place to buy equipment. And it's also, like I said, a great way to pick out that boat. We said 5 years, when that boat becomes a used boat, I want to buy it. So if you're not a new boat buyer, it's a great place to help you make your decisions.
What are your thoughts on boat shows, Wes?
I agree quite a bit with Tim. It's a great place to go, see what's out there, different types and classes of boats, especially if you're not real familiar with them. It's a great place to go. It's very aspirational. Wow, one day I want to have that. But, also, you can look at a boat, seems like a really cool boat. Ask the people at the boat show, well, are these boats made the same way they were 5 years ago? Would I be good to look for a used one of this model? You're asking yourself. You're not going to ask them at a boat show because they say, nope, I knew it. But, you can learn a lot about boats by going to a boat show.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Erin? Anything to add on that?
Just exactly what the guy said. It's an awesome place to kind of kick tires and just explore and get a feel for things. I mean, most people start their yacht shopping on Yacht World, and it's totally different to see these spaces and the layout and the size of things in person. So even if you're not buying new, it kind of gives you an idea for some of your general checklists for in the future.
Yeah, I like that Tim actually used the word to dream, because if you can't have fun at a boat show and enjoy the dream, then maybe boating is not for you, because you just get to hang around with people who love boats and talk to them all day about boats. And I don't know, I'm a big fan. I always just, kind of get giddy and excited and seeing all the flags up on the masts at a boat show, and knowing full well I kind of can't afford them. But it's fun. Let's take one last audience question before I ask my final question. The one by William Chain, if you could pop that up. Speaking of a modest or first-time buyer, how old is too old? I see a lot of 80s sailboats for sale. Wes, you want to answer that one first?
William, no boat is too old. I've got a 1946 Chris Craft just waiting to be loved. But I think if you want something that's going to be a little more turnkey, I would look for something that was built after 2004, 2005. 80s is you're looking at boats that are 45, 50 years old. So,
damn, is that how long ago the 80s were?
yeah, I think so.
Sounds about right.
Erin, Tim, do you guys have anything to add to that, to William's question?
People used to ask me how long are these boats going to last, and I'm like, nobody knows, because they really haven't really started building boats using modern technologies in late 60s, early 70s, and there's a lot of those boats still around. So 80s boats, if it fits your budget and it feels right. The problem is you're going to have a tough time getting insurance or finance on those boats. So if you can pay cash and you don't mind putting it under an umbrella policy or finding a State Farm type of insurance situation that may write a policy on an older boats are going to be fine. Those diesel engines, as long as they're maintained, will last for a very long period of time. But the caveat is, a lot of people don't fit that mold anymore, because a lot of those boats require a lot of hands-on maintenance that a newer boat might not. And so, if you're going to want to spend half of your time, working on your boat and the other half using your boat, that's a great combination for an older boat. But if you really don't like tinkering and you're going to have to write a check every single time somebody's got to twist a wrench, the newer might be a better option.
I think building off what both of you guys said, it's kind of important to know who you're buying from and kind of a little bit more of the history. Once a boat's that old, you want to know how it's been cared for, because all systems have a lifespan. So are you looking at replacing a few of those systems, just the sails? Maybe you have an engine replacement. So I think it comes down to an analysis of that specific boat, because sometimes some boats have been kept by a completely open checkbook owner who keeps it in a shed in Maine in a temperature-controlled room, and it's perfect, even though it's from the 70s. Whereas the boat that was down in Florida and did some heavy cruising and is in UV all year maybe got a lot more use and doesn't look as good. So I think it's more about where the boat has cruised, who owned it, and how it's been maintained over the years.
Yeah. Okay, one more question before I let you guys go. And it's the lightning round. Today, Erin, what's your dream boat?
My favorite boat right now, and I've been cruising a lot on it with a couple deliveries, is the Tartan 4300. You can single hand it. It still screams on a nice downwind breeze going 8.5 knots, but it also is heavy enough that when I get my rear end handed to me offshore.
Wes, dream boat.
Oh boy, my dream boat is probably like a Fleming 65, and that's a huge dream.
That is a big dream. All right, I like it. How about you, Tim? Dream boat.
Something like a Hylas 70 or a Swan 70 or something in that range that, just way beyond anything I'll probably ever own, just because I like to have those dreams.
Yeah, I like it. Well, thank you guys. Before we sign off, I want to give you guys a chance to tell everybody how they can reach you. So Erin, we're just going to go in nice clockwise order here. So Erin, if you just sort of give your email address or how people can find you at Crusader.
My email address is Townley, my last name, TOWNLEY, @gmail. We've got a personal website. It's got all my info on it. And my partner is Dave's, and that's DaveTownleyYachts.com. And then we've got CrusaderYachts.com gets to us, and Seattle Yachts. I'm all over the place.
Okay, good. Yeah, I found you through the Crusader Yachts website.
Exactly.
So I know that you can just find Crusader and pop through there, and you responded right away. How about you, Wes? How can people reach you over at
Easiest way is just to go to the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum website, which is cbmm.org. You can click to the Buy a Boat section, and there's ways to contact us there. Otherwise, my email address is wwilliams@cbmm.org.
Okay, great. How about you, Tim? How do we find you?
Easiest way to reach me is to go to the Pocket Yacht Company website or give me a call on my cell phone. I always answer. It's 410-507-4359. Again, that's 410-507-4359.
All right, we'll allow it. Well, you guys have been
like, of course, they're going to blow leaves right here when I get onto the phone. I apologize for the technical difficulties.
Hey, that's okay. It wouldn't be the Spin Sheet Happy Hour if one person wasn't sort of in and out the whole time. It's part of our program, and it's all good. It's a live program. You guys have been great guests, and we really appreciate your taking a bit out of your evening to be with us. So cheers, everybody. We try to clink toward the middle here if you can figure out which way is the middle. And Chris Charbonneau is back with this beer.
Gonna open this now, finally. I know.
And I know we're gonna see at least two of you at the Bay Bridge Boat Show and the Annapolis Springs Sailboat Show. If anybody wants to know about those boat shows, of course you can read about them in Spin Sheet and Prop Talk magazines, or you can go to the AnnapolisBoatShows.com and find out details and buy tickets there.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to Mount Gay. And we're going to take a little break from the Spin Sheet Happy Hour, and you won't see another announcement until November.
Yeah. We've decided that our attendance really went down over the summer, so we're going to change it up for the Mount Gay really sponsors a lot of racing. They're very racing oriented. So over the summer months, starting at the beginning of May, we're going to do a weekly racing result email. So if you're a sailboat racer and you would like to receive that in your email box, go to Spin Sheet, update your preferences, and make sure the racing box is checked. And we'll send out an email about that. But we're gonna do racing results during racing season, and we will resume our happy hours after the Annapolis Boat Show in the fall.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you again. Have a great summer.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, take care.